A billionaire secretly followed his son, and watched him run straight into the arms of a mysterious homeless woman. What he discovered next shattered everything he thought he knew about his child. Adrian Cole moved through his marble hallways like a man carrying a storm inside him. For weeks, he'd watched his 17-year-old son, Leo, slip through his fingers, emotionally, physically, spiritually. The boy who once told him everything now moved through the house like a ghost. Distant. Withdrawn. Secretive. And every Friday, Leo now skipped school with some flimsy excuse that never matched his character. At first, Adrian tried logic. Then patience. Then warnings. Nothing worked. So that morning, while Seattle was still rubbing sleep from its eyes, Adrian Cole, a billionaire known for strict routines and absolute control, broke his own rules. He followed his son. Leo left the mansion on foot, hoodie up, backpack hanging off one shoulder. Adrian sat quietly in the back seat of his SUV watching Leo through the tinted windshield. "Keep your distance," he murmured to his driver. The SUV rolled forward slowly as Leo walked down the street, passing cafes opening their shutters, newspaper stands unloading deliveries, commuters heading toward early buses. Then Leo crossed into a part of the city Adrian had only ever passed while rushing between meetings. The air changed first. Then the sidewalk. Then the people. Graffiti-stained brick walls. Smoke curled from rusted barrels where men huddled for warmth. Abandoned shops sagged behind broken metal gates. Here, danger didn't hide. It announced itself. Adrian's jaw tightened. Why would my son come here? Then he leaned forward. "Stop here. I'll continue on foot," he said to his driver. "Sir, this neighborhood isn't safe," Jonah warned. "I'm not asking," Adrian snapped, climbing out. The cold wind slapped his face as he pulled his coat tighter and followed Leo on foot, stepping around broken bottles, sidestepping a man muttering to himself. Leo walked like someone who knew this path well. Quick, familiar strides. No hesitation. With every step, Adrian's fury simmered hotter. Is this why he's been skipping school? To come to this place? Then, without warning, Leo stopped. Adrian slipped behind an old bus stop pole, watching. Leo dropped his backpack. It fell from his hands as if someone had ripped the strength out of his body. His shoulders trembled. Then he ran. "Leo," Adrian whispered, eyes widening. His son sprinted between two overflowing trash bins, past piles of damp cardboard, past a rusted shopping cart, straight toward a figure curled on the ground. A woman. A homeless woman. Her hair was knotted. Her coat still damp from last night's rain. She leaned against the dented frame of a dumpster, shivering violently. Before Adrian could process it, Leo dropped to his knees beside her and threw his arms around her. "Miss Mara," Leo cried, voice cracking. "I brought more food. Please, please don't faint again. Please don't do that to me." Adrian's entire body went numb. Something inside his chest turned to ice. Because in that single moment, Adrian Cole realized something terrifying. His son was living a secret life. And Adrian had absolutely no idea who this woman was. Or why Leo looked like he was trying to save her from dying. Adrian Cole had seen many things in his life. Hostile boardrooms, billion-dollar mergers collapsing overnight, politicians begging for favors. Nothing prepared him for what unfolded 10 feet in front of him. Leo wasn't just helping the homeless woman. He was holding her together. Her fragile body trembled as she clung to him, fingers digging into his jacket like he was the only anchor left in the world. Leo moved with a familiar tenderness, whispering soft words Adrian couldn't hear, but the tone said enough. This wasn't new. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't charity. This was routine. Leo brushed the woman's hair from her face with a practiced touch. He wiped her forehead with a clean cloth, checked her pulse with 2 steady fingers, then pulled a small flashlight from his backpack and checked her pupils. Adrian's breath stalled. His son moved like someone who'd done this many times, like someone who had spent weeks, maybe months, caring for this stranger. "Don't faint again," Leo whispered, supporting her shoulders. "You scared me last time. Please, just drink this. Slow. Okay. Slow." The word again slammed into Adrian's chest. His privileged son, raised in a mansion, groomed for elite universities, chauffeured since childhood, was tending to a collapsing woman in a back alley as though his own life depended on hers. Adrian felt his knees weaken. How many times has this happened? What else have I missed? Fear and shame twisted together inside him. He stepped back into the shadows, terrified Leo might see him. He felt like an intruder in his own son's world, a stranger watching a truth he'd never been trusted with. Leo gave the woman a bottle of water, holding it to her lips so she wouldn't spill. Then he wrapped her in a warmer blanket, carefully tucking it around her shoulders. He didn't look like a boy doing a good deed. He looked like someone fighting to keep her alive. Adrian couldn't take any more. He slipped away, nearly stumbling over a broken bottle, his thoughts chaotic and his heart pounding. He needed answers. He needed truth. He needed his son back. That night, the Cole mansion felt colder than usual. The chandeliers glowed softly over polished marble, but the house held no warmth for Adrian. Not after what he'd seen. He found Leo in the living room, sitting at the edge of the couch, staring at nothing. Hoodie still on. Shoes still dusty. Backpack slumped on the floor. He looked drained. Hollow. Older than 17. Adrian paused at the doorway. 1,000 questions crowded his tongue. Where did you meet her? How long has this been happening? Why didn't you tell me? Are you in danger? But he swallowed all of them. If he pushed too hard, Leo would shut down. If he stayed silent, the distance would only grow. Adrian forced himself to breathe, then crossed the room and sat beside his son, slow and careful. "Leo," he said softly, using the tone he hadn't used since his son was small. "You look tired." Leo blinked, startled by the gentleness. I'm fine." He wasn't fine. Adrian could see it instantly. His son's shoulders were tense. His eyes red. His fingers still faintly trembling, remembering the weight of a collapsing body. "Son," Adrian tried again, keeping his voice calm, "if anything is bothering you, anything at all, you can tell me." Leo didn't answer. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. His jaw clenched. He stared at his hands, as if they were holding secrets he didn't dare release. Adrian leaned in slightly, voice lower, as if Leo were 5 again and afraid of the dark. "I mean it," he said quietly. "You don't have to carry things alone. Not with me. Not in this house. Whatever it is, whatever you're fighting. I want to help you." Leo finally lifted his gaze. What Adrian saw in his eyes wasn't just exhaustion. It was guilt. Fear. And something else, something like disappointment. Leo inhaled shakily, lips parting as though he wanted to hand over the weight on his chest. Instead, he whispered one sentence. "You wouldn't understand." Adrian froze. The words hit harder than any business catastrophe he'd ever faced. You wouldn't understand. His son, his only child, didn't see him as a safe place. Didn't trust him with his pain. Didn't believe he would care in the way that mattered. For the first time in his life, Adrian realized he no longer knew his own child at all. Sleep avoided Adrian like an enemy that night. He lay in his king-size bed staring at the ceiling while the city hummed outside. Seattle's lights used to comfort him, proof of the empire he'd built, of the control he maintained. Tonight, they mocked him. He saw only fragments. Leo's exhausted eyes. The woman's body crumpled in his son's arms. Don't faint again. You wouldn't understand. By 3:17 a.m., he gave up pretending he could sleep. He slipped out of bed, shrugged on his robe, and went down to his private study, a room built for crisis strategy and secret deals. Tonight, it became something else. He pushed aside stacks of financial reports, opened his laptop, and typed the only thing that mattered. Homeless woman collapsed Seattle alley fire accident. Leo Cole. Nothing. He tried again. Homeless woman medical emergency abandoned building East Side Seattle. Still nothing. So he picked up his phone. At 3:41 a.m., his head of security answered groggily. "Sir. I need information on a woman," Adrian said. "Homeless. Possibly named Mara. Last seen near Brookline and Jasper. I want everything, medical records, missing persons, known shelters." Quietly. "Yes, sir. No questions." Adrian paid well for silence. While the team worked, he combed through local forums, charity databases, hospital notices, every forgotten corner of the digital world where overlooked people occasionally left footprints. Hours passed. Coffee cups emptied. Sunrise brushed the skyline. Still nothing. Who is she? Why is my son risking so much for her? Why isn't she in a hospital? At 9:58 a.m., his phone buzzed. Found something. Sending file. Adrian opened the scanned newspaper article. The image was faded, edges frayed. The kind of story the world forgets as soon as the next tragedy arrives. Headline. Community Youth Center burns, local woman saves 14 children. Adrian's heartbeat slowed, then sped up again. The woman in the picture was younger, healthier. Standing in front of a burned-out building, clothes covered in ash, tears streaking her face as firefighters praised her. Her name, Mara Ellis, founder and director of New Dawn Youth Center. The article described an electrical fault. A building engulfed in minutes. Mara evacuating every child inside, inhaling too much smoke, collapsing at the scene. The center never reopened. Funding dried up. Whispers of negligence and paperwork issues followed. Her reputation crumbled under accusations no one bothered to fully investigate. She lost everything. Home. Career. Purpose. Health. Adrian leaned back in his chair, breath leaving his lungs in a single slow exhale. This woman wasn't always broken. And somehow, Leo had found her at her lowest, alone. It was late evening when Leo's phone buzzed. Adrian noticed instantly. His son had been quiet all through dinner, barely touching his food, glancing at the clock every few seconds. When the vibration came, something in Leo's face changed, a flicker of fear, of responsibility. Leo didn't say a word. He just stood, grabbed his hoodie, and headed for the door. This wasn't casual. This wasn't optional. Adrian followed. He didn't call Jonah this time. He moved on foot, keeping a careful distance as Leo cut through side streets, moving faster than usual. The city felt colder that night. The wind sliced down the alleys as if the buildings were funneling it. The sky hung low and heavy, threatening rain. They reached the same grim part of Seattle. Littered sidewalks. Flickering streetlights. Voices echoing between old bricks. Leo quickened his pace. He stopped near a gutter by an abandoned construction fence. There, slumped against a cracked concrete wall, was Mara. Her body leaned sideways, as if gravity had almost won. Her breathing was shallow. Her head drooped dangerously low. She looked worse than before, paler, weaker. Leo dropped to his knees. "Miss Mara," he whispered, tapping her cheek. Hey, look at me. I'm here now. I'm here." From behind a broken signpost, Adrian watched his son crumble with worry. And in that moment, the scene blurred in Leo's mind as memory dragged him back to the first day it all began. He'd been walking home from school, headphones in, backpack heavy, already stressed about homework he didn't care about. Another ordinary afternoon. Until he saw her. A woman staggering near the edge of the sidewalk, her steps uneven, her breath short and ragged. Before he could react, she collapsed, her head cracking against the concrete. People gasped. People stared. People walked on. Drunk. Troublemaker. The whispers were cruel. Leo froze, for a second. Then he ran. He was the only one. He lifted her head gently, panic rising inside him. He searched her bag for medication, an inhaler, anything. Nothing. So he sprinted to a corner store, spending his lunch money on water, pain meds, bandages. He stayed with her until she woke up. And from that day, he never stopped coming back. Adrian watched his son now, in real time, his heart pounding. This wasn't obligation. It wasn't pity. It was loyalty, born in a moment when no one else cared. Leo had seen a dying woman and decided she would not die alone. If this story has your heart tightening already, don't forget to like this video so more people can find it. Now, let's continue. Leo unpacked his backpack on the cold ground. No textbooks. No sports gear. No sign of the life Adrian had tried to script for him. Instead, a thermos of warm soup. Bottled water. 2 protein bars. A folded sweater. Thick socks. A small envelope. Please drink first, Leo said softly, unscrewing the water bottle cap. You're dehydrated again. Mara's fingers trembled as she reached for it. Leo steadied her wrist gently, guiding it to her lips. Adrian felt something twist in his chest. My son shouldn't know how to do this. My son shouldn't have to. Leo held up the sweater. Lift your arms a little. Yeah, like that. This one's warmer. Softer than the last. He wrapped it around her shoulders, smoothing the fabric and tucking the sleeves around her like she was someone precious. Then came the envelope. I saved what I could, he murmured. It's not much, but it'll help you through the weekend. Adrian recognized the faint green tint of the bills inside. 200. Maybe 3. Leo's allowance. His lunch money. His savings. Money Adrian never noticed was gone. Mara shook her head weakly. Leo, no. You need this. You're just a kid. Leo gave a small, tired smile Adrian had never seen before. You need it more. The son of a billionaire was kneeling in an alley, giving away every piece of warmth he had to keep a dying woman alive, while his father hosted charity galas under imported crystal. Adrian pressed a hand to the cold brick wall to steady himself. Guilt hit him fast, sharp, suffocating. He thought of the millions he donated each year, the photographs, the speeches, the glittering events where he congratulated himself for changing lives. Here, in this forgotten alley, his son was doing more good than any gala he had ever hosted. No lights. No cameras. No applause. Just humanity. At 2:13 a.m., sitting in his study later that night, Adrian whispered the word that finally emerged from the haze of his thoughts. Coward. He had watched from the shadows. Watched as his son carried burdens he'd never seen. Watched as a dying woman leaned on a boy who shouldn't have to shoulder a world alone. He had done nothing. And the guilt refused to sleep. By 4 a.m., Adrian stood at the tall window, gazing out at Seattle's skyline, bridges, cranes, towers piercing the dawn. His reflection looked older than it had the night before. He pictured Leo walking those streets alone again next Friday. Pictured Mara collapsing with no one there. Pictured a call from a hospital, or worse. I can't let this continue. If Leo wouldn't let him in. If Mara truly had no one else. Then he had to step in. Not as Adrian Cole the billionaire. Not for headlines or tax write-offs. As a father. As a human being. Before sunlight fully broke, he made a decision, firm and unshakable. Next Friday, he would go first. He would be there before Leo arrived. He would protect the woman. He would protect his son. And somewhere deep inside, a quieter truth whispered. He wasn't just trying to save them. He was searching for redemption. Friday came with a cutting wind in the narrow alley. Loose metal rattled. Paper scraps tumbled along the cracked pavement. Adrian stood there long before sunrise, leaning against a rusted fence, his breath visible in the cold air. He was more nervous than he'd ever been in any boardroom. Every footstep made his muscles tense. Every shadow looked like danger. Then he heard it, a faint shuffling, the drag of feet on concrete, a weak, broken cough. Mara. She emerged from behind a dumpster, her body wobbling like her legs no longer trusted her. Her hair was matted, her sweater slipping off one shoulder, breath coming in thin gasps. "Miss Mara," Adrian whispered, almost without meaning to. She took 3 unstable steps. Then 2. Her knees buckled. She crashed to the ground, her body hitting the concrete with a sickening thud. "Mara." Adrian sprinted. No hesitation. No calculation. No thought of image or consequence. He dropped to the ground beside her, lifting her head gently, his palm against her cheek. Her skin was terrifyingly cold. "Stay with me," he pleaded. "Please stay with me. Mara, can you hear me? Open your eyes. Please." Her eyelids fluttered weakly. Her breathing was shallow. Her pulse faint. "Jonah!" Adrian shouted, voice echoing down the alley. "Emergency kit, now." The driver leaped from the SUV with the black medical bag they kept for corporate crises. Adrian lifted Mara into his arms and was shocked at how light she was, like carrying a bundle of sticks. "I've got you," he whispered. "I won't let you die here. I promise." They laid her across the back seat. Jonah tore open the emergency kit, pulling out an oxygen mask, blankets, instant heat packs. "Go." Adrian barked. "Hospital. Now." The SUV roared out of the alley, tires screeching as they sped toward the emergency room. Minutes later, Leo arrived at the now empty corner. He jogged in, expecting to find Mara in her usual spot. Instead, there was only cold concrete. The blanket was gone. Her bag was gone. "Mara," he called, voice breaking. "Miss Mara?" No answer. He searched behind dumpsters, fences, piles of trash. Nothing. His breathing sped up. Panic clawed at his throat. She collapsed. And no one was there. She must be dead. Tears stung his eyes. He walked home shaking, carrying the weight of a woman he believed he'd lost. The drive back from the hospital felt unreal to Adrian. Mara lay quietly in the back seat, wrapped in blankets. Her breathing was steadier now, her skin warmed by the car's heater. An 4-port was taped to her hand, a hospital band around her wrist. Fragile. But alive. "Stay with me," Adrian had whispered. And she had. When they reached the mansion, Jonah helped him carry her inside. Staff members froze, staring at the sight of their employer carrying a battered middle-aged woman into the grand foyer as if she were someone priceless. Adrian ignored their looks. He laid Mara gently on the living room couch, tucked a blanket around her, and asked the staff for warm tea, soup, fresh clothes. It took hours for her to fully wake. When she did, confusion melted into relief. "Am I really here?" she whispered. "Yes," Adrian said quietly. "You're safe." By evening, the house grew still. Soft lamps cast an amber glow across the room. Adrian sat opposite Mara, fingers laced tightly as he rehearsed what he would say to Leo. Nothing he imagined prepared him for the actual moment. The front door opened. Footsteps. Leo stepped into the living room and stopped. His backpack slipped off his shoulder and hit the floor with a dull thud. His eyes moved from his father to the couch, to the woman wrapped in a soft blanket, clean, warm, breathing. Miss Mara, he whispered, voice splintering. She lifted her hand weakly. Leo. He staggered forward. Tears flooded his eyes before he could blink them back. He dropped to his knees and took her hand like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline. You're alive, he choked. You're really alive. I thought you were gone. His words broke into sobs. Adrian stepped forward. Leo, he said softly. His son turned to him, face wet, chest heaving. Dad, how did you? Adrian didn't let him finish. He pulled Leo into a deep, trembling hug, the first real embrace they'd shared in years. I understand now, Adrian whispered into his son's shoulder. You were right. I followed you, and I'm sorry. Leo clung to him, finally letting himself break. Mara wiped at her eyes. Leo, she whispered, you saved my life. Every day you came, you kept me alive when no one else even saw me. She turned to Adrian. And you, thank you for saving my future. Adrian knelt beside them both. I'm not stopping here, he said quietly. I'm paying for your full rehabilitation. Everything. And I'm rebuilding your youth center. Mara covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Leo stared at his father, stunned and grateful, as if seeing him for the first time. In that moment, they weren't three broken people anymore. They were a beginning. Spring arrived in Seattle with a quiet warmth that softened the city's sharp edges. On the corner of Riverstone Avenue, where an abandoned warehouse once stood like an old scar, a new building rose. Fresh paint. Shining windows. A bright blue sign. New Dawn Youth Center. Rebuilt. Reborn. Adrian stood beside Mara and Leo at the simple ribbon cutting. No cameras. No reporters. No PR team. Just the three of them and a handful of kids from the neighborhood peeking curiously through the clean windows. Mara was no longer the frail woman trembling in an alley. Months of treatment had restored her strength, her voice, her dignity. Her hair was neatly braided, her clothes clean, her smile alive. Adrian handed her a pair of ceremonial scissors. Director Ellis, he said with a small smile. You should do the honors. Her eyes shimmered as she cut the ribbon. The children clapped. She stepped inside, trailing her hand along the wall as if greeting an old friend brought back from the dead. Leo walked beside her, arms full of boxes. He volunteered every weekend, tutoring, cleaning, organizing, fixing old computers, reading to kids who needed an older brother. The boy Adrian once feared he was losing had found a calling bigger than himself. Adrian watched from the entrance, hands in his coat pockets, as Leo knelt beside a shy 10-year-old. It's okay, Leo said gently. You can tell me what's wrong. I'll help you. The boy nodded. Leo smiled. Adrian felt something melt inside his chest. He had spent years trying to mold his son into a reflection of himself, disciplined, controlled, unbreakable. Now the truth was painfully clear. Leo wasn't meant to be him. Leo was meant to be better. Mara approached and touched Adrian's arm lightly. He gets it from you, you know, she said. Adrian shook his head, eyes soft. No, he murmured. I think I'm learning from him. She smiled. Humanity grows where it's shown. You were brave enough to listen. Adrian exhaled slowly, feeling, for the first time in years, like his heart wasn't locked behind armor. Leo had learned kindness from Mara. Adrian had learned humanity from Leo. And together, the three of them weren't just rebuilding a youth center. They were rebuilding a broken soul. They were rebuilding a boy who'd carried too much alone. They were rebuilding something that looked very much like a family. Not by blood. Not by obligation. But by love. Thank you for watching. If you believe kindness can still change lives, tap like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs hope today.